Hi everybody, I'm Prema Govindan and I'm in conversation with Rehana Munir, who's written the lovely looking Paper Moon with HarperCollins India. I'm the editor on the book, and Paper Moon is a lovely book. It's a bright, frothy book about the business of books and the triangular love life of Fiza Khalid, who's the protagonist. And welcome, Rehana.
Thank you, Prema.
And welcome to Delhi as well. You just landed.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I'm happy to report the air is clearing out.
Yes. Yeah, and so you brought some nice wins here.
It's good to know. And thank you for saying the lovely things about the book. And Prema has worked, she's been instrumental in shaping the book, making it what it is.
Yeah. I'm sure you've anticipated this question. And but which part of the book exactly? Would it be the bookstore part or the love interest part?
All the parts that make me look good are autobiographical. And the same goes for anyone who finds themselves in the book. If they're happy, it's real. If they're unhappy, it's fiction. No, but to seriously answer your question, a lot of the book obviously comes from my own experiences in life. I did run a bookshop in Bombay many years ago. That was the mid 2000s. The bookshop that Fiza Khalid runs in the book is the early 2000s. So there is a bit of a before and after in terms of the time period. Having said that, the book sort of started writing itself. So I never sat down deliberately, or I was never conscious of the fact that it should be the way things were in real life. A lot of it naturally came in. More often than not, I was inventing, which is a novelist's job. Even with all the influences and all your experiences, you are inventing and you are creating a fictional world. In my case, when it comes to this book, the people who actually visited my bookshop all those years ago will see how very different this world is. Part of it is fantasy and wish fulfillment. Doing it right, because you have no budget constraints for one when you're writing. And also the relationships that define this book are very different from the relationships that define my world.
Okay.
So yes, to honestly and truthfully answer your question, there is a bit of me and the people I know, and there's an entire invented universe. And I very quickly into the writing process, I decided not to bother myself with the question at all, because that would just be an encumbrance and it would be an oppressive thought. So I just went with it.
Okay, and you were pretty young when you actually started Paper Moon in Bandra, right?
Paper Moon in Bandra. So the original bookshop was called the Reader's Shop, and it was in Santa Cruz.
Okay.
I was pretty young now. Come to think of it, I wasn't even 24, I think, when I set it up. I'm 38 now. So the interesting part is that now I have the comfort of distance. I can look at that life from the lens of distance and perhaps make sense of some of those experiences and rewrite all of them for sure.
Yeah, and so you were pretty young, you were a woman. So how was it dealing with this male-dominated world of bookstores and warehouses and the places where these stocks are lying around? So I'm sure you had to walk into all of these areas to get that done. As a really young person, did you think that
Yeah.
was it very different, or did you not really feel?
Prema, I was felt so very lucky and privileged to be given the opportunity to run a bookshop that nothing seemed to matter then, and it doesn't now. It's the same goes for writing a book. You feel so very lucky that you have the chance. To answer your question about the gender thing, more than gender, I feel it was the age question. Because to run an office or any space when you're younger than most of the crew, that is a challenge even now, is true of any time with anyone. So I found that to be telling people how things should be done, or directing the course of a bookshop or a business, that was a bit of a challenge. Having said that, the pleasures of the business, and which never felt like a business then, perhaps that's why the bookshop didn't run as long as it should have, which is what I'm hoping to address with the book.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you, so midway through the book, and I'm sure this is a decision that you had to make personally as well while you were handling the bookshop. Initially you had just the highbrow books and literature and all of that, and suddenly, you were made aware of the fact that this is a commercial enterprise, and you had to bring other books in. How was that? Was it a real struggle to come to terms with that, or?
I think that is what one calls the folly of youth and the arrogance of the literature graduate and all of that. So you are disabused of those notions very quickly. It did happen. You go in thinking you're in a literature class, and you should only have the best of what is said and thought in the world. And yes, very soon the market teaches you lessons that books will not. I was not one of those MBA. I shouldn't carry on with that line of thought. I am not an MBA, so it was I needed to learn on the job, and yes, it was quite quick. There were all these compromises, and a lot of that finds its way in the book. Fiza confronts these, she faces these challenges and these issues. What kind of book should I keep? I don't myself believe in Vastu, for example, but should I not have it in my store?
Exactly.
So these are these ideological things and all. And at the end of the day, if you're running a bookshop, you need to sometimes make a hard call and say it's not about my personal interests.
That's true.
Okay. It should be wider than that.
Yeah, and yours was an independent bookshop. What do you think generally of the market now? All these independent shops are shutting down.
Yes, Prema, even at that time, I was asked the same question. So I'm heartened, I feel, by the fact that there are still. At that time, of course, Kindle, digital and everything was still coming in, setting in. Now with Kindle and everything, I still see some lovely bookshops springing up every now and then. Very recently, there's a very nice little Bandra bookshop that's opened up called Trilogy, and it's lovely to see that very organic thing. There's tidal waves, and so in Bandra where I live, there's still that. Again, these are exceptions. I can't even think of a third right now because the crossword close to my home is shut down or it's relocating. But yes, this is a long conversation, and I'm sure we'll need to really refer to all the data and the facts. But from what I see and from my explorations of cities, there are some books, and someone I was having a conversation with was saying that they are making a comeback in a big way because these physical books are now giving millennials some kind of
connect with the books.
Yes.
Okay. So when you were handling the bookshop, were these online retailers in play then? They just started.
From my memory, again, it's I should remember more about those days. But no, I don't even think we were buying books online at that time. It had just come in. And Kindle perhaps had just entered the market or not. Honestly, it's blurry. Of course it was. This was the 2003, 2004. So everything had made an entry. But you still had your browsers,
but it was
events in bookshops and
infancy of the online retail.
That's right.
Okay.
The bigger challenge was always the big retail giants, as opposed to the smaller ones. More than the digital versus print was the big versus small, which continues to exist everywhere in the world.
That's true. And what's your favorite little bookshop? Which is the coziest bookshop you find?
In the world, or in my city, or in the country?
In the world and in the city.
I had the good fortune of visiting a bookshop that I have been dreaming of visiting for many years. I was in Paris earlier this year, and I went to a bookshop called Shakespeare and Company.
Oh, I love the place as well.
Yes. And it was remarkable.
Just managed to create a cozy nook for book lovers, right?
The cat and the piano and the sudden corners and
people on typewriters and
absolutely. So it was even better than I imagined it. So I would say now, fresh from my European adventure. But in India, my favorite bookshop is Blossom in Book House in Bangalore. It's the upper stories are for used books, and niche you have on the ground floor you have the thing. But I love it. I love to lose myself. That they serve you these little thimbles of coffee every now and then.
Oh, I've never been there. Okay. So Bombay. Bombay tell me more about your relationship with the city.
Yes. So I
in the book also I can see that there are these places and events that are totally enmeshed with the narrative, and I felt that you are totally in love with the place. And also Bandra, I think there's a parallel love story going on there
between Fiza and Bandra.
Yeah.
Fiza, who's tall and I am not. Yes, I was born in Bandra. I went to school on Hill Road. Family, friends, all of those experiences that people have with the cities of their birth. But having said that, in real life, my relationship with Bombay is a little more complicated because, and especially perhaps I disentangled, or I made it easy for myself by talking about Bombay in the past. Though it's a slight past, it's just around 15 years ago. I think it made it easier for me to express my love for the city more than the deeper sort of complexities that come in with age. I mean, I'm older now, and I'm also, things are changing, not all for the better. There's all the usual problems that cities face, gentrification, and a kind of a turning into one. Everything turns into a mall sooner or later. So, having said that, Bandra is still has those, like you said, these cozy nooks and these shady lanes, and you can still have a keema pao and good luck and appear at yacht perhaps, and it's all there. A different generation of Bandraite, enjoys these places of leisure, but you still find what you want, I feel.
Okay, and from that love story to the bookish love story between Fiza and Iqbal. And this one's a little complicated, and this was a question that somebody else wanted me to ask you. So here it is. What's Fiza's take on love? So there's filial love, which is complicated by all the separation and whatnot. Then there is sibling love with Vivek. Then there is love with Dhruv and Iqbal. So why doesn't Fiza react to love the way everybody else around her does? Why is it so, is it because of the relationship that her parents had between each other, or is it completely independent of that? What is your take on it?
I'm actually interested to know what you mean, or your questioner means by how does Fiza not react like other people? You mean in the class traditional way, as in being much more open and expressive of it?
Yeah, exactly.
The way the story is plotted, or the way it expressed itself even to me, I feel this book has come out of somewhere. I think Fiza seems to have moved from a place of being very subdued, not just about love, but about a lot of her own emotions at the start of the book. Because she
comes to her own towards the end.
Yes. So in the early stages of the book, we see her as living in this very contained, flat space in her head and physically with her mother, who's to me, I find her to be a very interesting character, Noor, Fiza's mother. And it's all about keeping that relationship going. She does have a relationship with Dhruv, her college boyfriend, that trope. But you're expected to end up with your college boyfriend, a lot of people. And this book actually begins with her rejecting a marriage proposal. And so perhaps a question to ask is, why would you say no to someone that you have been dating for many years? But I think with Fiza, she's still trying to find her way. And in the 2 or 3 years that the book plots in her life and in the life of the store, I think she figures that expressing her feelings, whether it comes to filial love or romantic love, or even as a professional, she learns to kind of express what she wants in a language, verbally and otherwise, that she did not possess earlier. So hopefully the question is addressed by the end of the book, where she seems to be, I think, a bit more on the front foot without giving more things away. Which is why it could be seen as a coming of age narrative, where someone begins somewhere and then moves to another place.
And Paper Moon is your first novel. So any false starts before you actually ended up writing this? Were you thinking of other things, or was this the only thing that you ever thought that you wanted to
I
write?
don't know. It was just this, and it came with such ease, as I was discussing with someone recently, that it made me second guess everything. Why is it coming in this beautiful flow, chapter wise, which makes me feel it has been in my head in some way. Well, some not crystallized, but somewhere. And when I
It was
actually,
just a matter of putting it all.
I keep telling my friends, it all came from the fingers, and which was a great feeling. I don't know what it will be, for my next book or anything else that I write after this, but this came from a space of ease. Not always lightness, because this book does have its complexities, but surely from a space of ease. It was not a labored or laborious effort. I wish I could be
a good thing.
one of those chain-smoking writers who go off to the mountains and say, oh, we won't talk to anyone. None of that. I had a great time writing it.
Oh, then it was just waiting to happen. Basically, that's nice, and it's written pretty well as well. It's not,
it's kind.
I won't be able to say that you did not go for a holiday in the hills to write.
let me clarify. I did have very generous friends offering me with their homes in the hills, but I ended up not really writing there. I went on the pretext of writing, but it all helps,
That's true. And you call yourself a 1990s junkie, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So why is the book not said there? I would have expected you to have said the book back in the 90s then.
That's interesting. Again, like a lot of this book, it was not very conscious. I feel some of the themes and some of the setting of the book suited the early 2000s. It was a new millennium. From my memory of it, new things were expected of the world, like we expect even at the beginning of every year. And again, it just offered itself up to my imagination. It was also in many ways the 90s. The book begins in the 90s. It talks about Fiza in college in the mid to late 90s. So it sets it up, and in many ways it did continue over the few years that I'm writing about. So I'm not making any hard distinction between those eras. I feel it did flow in a kind of way.
Okay. And what is the best and the worst thing that you think? What are the best and the worst things you associate with the 90s? And what would you want coming back from the 90s?
It makes me sound like I'm older than I really am. But now, from this distance, I seem to like things a lot more. I mean, I'm like everything about the 90s.
Yeah.
But at the time, of course, there's the electronic wave in music, which one hated, whether it's the shankar or the synthesizer being overused.
Yes.
I didn't particularly enjoy a lot of the films then. Of course, watched a lot of them. In fact, I grew up on a Bollywood diet.
I give myself credit for having grown up reasonably sane after the kind of movies and music that we were exposed
of those
while growing up.
And now it's very ironic because one is seeking that out in retro nights and clubs and things, because you feel, oh wow, it's so charming. It wasn't then.
I know, I agree. And you held the book for the first time today. It's just arrived from press. How does it feel?
This is really lovely. It's a remarkable feeling. It's again, it was surreal up till now because we have been seeing cover designs and we've been talking on WhatsApp and email and everything. To physically hold a copy of one's first book is, I think it's one of those moments.
And when's the
very gratifying.
You left the previous one at a really nice, delicious juncture. So when's the next one come?
I'm happy to know that there is some that question has been posed. But yes, the fingers have to get working again.
Okay, and I think we are almost out of time. So last, and I've saved the best for the last.
I'm scared now.
Yeah. How would Rehana react to Iqbal if he were a
Which one? There are two Iqbals.
The young one. Iqbal version 2.0.
How would I respond to in Iqbal in real life? Oh, I would be charmed because he's come from a part of my imagination which is sort of he's
always wanted Iqbal to be
There are,
around.
there are Iqbals everywhere in some way or the other. But yes, I am sort of align myself with Fiza in her reaction to Iqbal. I find him to be a charming character.
Exactly what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was lovely talking to you, Rehana, and we've had a wonderful evening. Thank you so much, and I think
Thank you.
we're done.
Thank you, Prema.